Hi, I'm JP Terry, and I'll show you the proper way to configure HTTPS on an AEM server. We'll remote into one of my servers, configure the certificates, and use the AEM SSL wizard to configure AEM. So let's take a look at the problem and the solution.
The problem is that many AEM servers are not properly configured for HTTPS. Users receive security warnings because there's no third-party certificate authority verifying the server's identity. Instead, it should look like this. This server is properly configured, and users are assured based on the browser's visual feedback. The server is configured with a publicly trusted certificate that automatically performs the domain validation without scaring the user. The problem is at least partially caused by Adobe's own documentation. As you can see here, Adobe's AEM documentation leads us in the direction of self-signed certificates. This is not the way, because it doesn't provide server identity validation. Instead, we will use a trusted CA certificate to verify our server and establish automatic browser-level trust. I get my CA certificates from DigiCert. As you can see here, I have remoted into my server and logged into my DigiCert account. I will show you how I use the DigiCert certificate to provide proper HTTPS configuration on my AEM server. The first step is to export the private key as a PFX file and include all certificates in the certification path. I'll select my certificate, click Export Certificate, and notice I'm getting a PFX and I'm including all certificates in the certification path. I'll hit Next. Now I'm just going to put a password. And I'll hit Next. I am going to store this in my OpenSSL folder on my C drive. And I'll hit Save, and I'll hit Finish. And it tells me the certificate and key has been successfully exported. So I put it in my OpenSSL because in the next step, I have to perform certificate extraction and format conversion. I have a command window, and I'm logged in as administrator. Directly below the command window is my OpenSSL folder, so you can see the new certificate assets as they are created. Notice aemforms.info private key is in the OpenSSL folder right down here. This is the full certificate issued by the certificate authority. We will enter this command to create the PEM file, and we enter a password. Now we'll enter this command to create the dir file, and you see these files being created in OpenSSL below. And finally, we'll enter this command, and again the password, and that creates the certificate chain.pem file down here, which we'll use in the next step. The next step is a little tricky because we have to create a new cert file, and we only need parts of our certificate chain. We open up this file, certificate chain.pem, into Notepad++. We copy the first block from the begin certificate all the way to the end certificate, and we paste it into our new file, which is certificate.crt. We go back to the PEM file. We can skip the middle block, and we have to copy the end block completely again from begin certificate to end certificate. So we'll copy that, and we'll paste that below that first block. And that's it. We'll save it. We have the dir file here and the CRT file. And those are the files that AEM needs. So in the next step, we'll configure AEM. Now that we have the proper certificates, we can go back to AEM. We'll go into Tools, Security, and we'll open up SSL configuration. Now this password is not the same password that we used before. This is the password that AEM stores internally for the key store and the trust store password. So it doesn't have to be the password we used when we were creating our files. Okay, so I enter those passwords, I hit Next. These are the files that we created. I'll select the dir file, and I'll select the cert, and I hit Next. Now here, normally this would be pretty straightforward, but I've already configured this server, as you can tell from the opening screens. But I put in my host name, aemforms.info. This is popular, 8443. I use 8444 because of my JE server is also configured on this box. But since I already have a different server configured, I guess for this example, I'll have to use 8445, and then I hit done. And that's it. Everything's configured and it's ready to go. And I'll show you what it looks like to the end user. Students can now log into the Sandbox server and receive reassuring browser feedback like this. Because the server is configured with a publicly trusted certificate that automatically performs the domain validation without scaring the user. Trusted certificate authorities have their root certificates built into the browser's trust store, so the browser automatically validates the server's identity, creating both encrypted communication and authenticated trust. If you'd like to learn more about AEM or AEM forms, join us at aemforms.training. If you have any questions about AEM forms, please feel free to email me at jp@smartdoctech.com. Thank you.